Ambreen, welcome to our Diversity and Inclusion Q&A initiative. We are so excited to have you on board and to hear your wonderful story. It would be great if we could start by finding out a little bit more about what a typical day as a head of platform is like for you.
Awesome, Ellie. I'm really excited to be here and share my thoughts around what I do with you and your audience. So starting with what does a typical day for a head of platform looks like? Well, these days it's different because of COVID and pandemic. Things are different. Previously, I had to commute for 30 minutes. Now I just get up and I'm at my workplace. But usually my day starts with stand-up meetings, one-on-one meetings. Half of the day is mostly around meetings around the technical architectures, meeting around organizations, meeting around hierarchy, charts, and all that stuff. And then, of course, I am still a very hands-on engineer as well. So I prefer to spend some time of my day doing some actual technical work as well. And I think what I have learned over time is that there's a lot of context switching. So I'm doing a lot of management work, a lot of leadership work, and then technical work as well. And I have actually learned that if I dedicate my days to particularly one set of things that I want to do, like, for example, Mondays, I want to focus on one-on-ones, people leadership. Tuesdays, I want to do more technical work. Wednesdays, I want to have no meeting days. So I think it depends on how you arrange your day. And I have realized the latter strategy works well for me when I tend to divide my days vertically rather than horizontally.
Yeah, cool. So organization is key within your position and the responsibilities that you have. What would you say you enjoy most about the role as head of platform?
I think the most enjoyable part of my work is the technology, because when you're working with platforms, especially scalable platforms that I have mostly been working in the past, you get such a kick out of new technology that's coming in, because recently there have been so many new trends when it comes to your continuous integration and delivery platforms, your production platforms, security, different cloud operations and services that you can perform. So I think that's the most exciting about what's the new thing, what's the new challenge that is presented to scalable platforms. I think that's the best part about being part of an infrastructure platform team. But then on the other hand, there are other challenges that are more related to like people and organization and things like that, which is also great.
So you've got like a whirlwind of opportunities, so many different responsibilities. It's nice to have an element of everything. But on the topic of tech, how would you define your expertise?
When it comes to technical expertise, I would say that I've been in tech for almost 15 years now, and I was not always involved with the infrastructure or the platform side of the things. I started off as a C developer, Java developer, and then to challenge myself, I transitioned into cloud architecture, design, and more operations side of the things. And when you actually talk about my technical expertise, it starts from programming to cloud architecture to security to AWS to GCP to all things, all tools, DevOps.
Amazing. So having that extensive background within development, what would you say actually sparked your interest in going into this continuous integration more towards cloud DevOps?
So you see, when you're a programmer, when you're programming, you're kind of limited to what you're doing. But when you move towards the DevOps side of things, it's the tooling, it's the architecture, it's the design. So you're not really limited to a particular problem that you're working with, but you're more involved in how does an organization's end-to-end deployment strategy works like. So it doesn't only involve the technical part of what you're doing, but more or less also the process part of it. More or less, okay, you have an app or you have a radio base station, how you're going to be deploying that, what is going to be the process, because DevOps really have a tendency to define the backbone of your organization, because everything just gets connected to how your pipelines look like, how your deployment pipelines look like, how your production environment look like. So yeah, I think it's a very interesting area and I absolutely enjoy being in it.
Amazing. I'm so pleased to hear that. And I know that tech is something you're extremely passionate about. So are you still learning?
Oh, yeah, I think sometimes I get a bit tired. I'm like, okay, today I'm not gonna learn because because the kind of work that I do is that if I had stopped learning, I would have uh, become obsolete long time ago. When you decide to work in tech, you cannot say that, okay, what I studied in university or college was enough. You cannot say that. You have to continuously be learning, otherwise you get obsolete, like within, not even sometimes within years, within months you get obsolete. For example, in tech, every day there is a new framework, there's a new library, there's a new tool, and something that was hot 5 years ago is not anymore. So I think it's so important that you have this mentality and this mindset of continuously learning. Otherwise, yeah, otherwise it gets very difficult.
Definitely. Technology is evolving and changing so much. I think it changes as much as the UK weather. Honestly, it's like forever evolving. But what
Yeah.
are you particularly excited about at the moment, technology wise?
Uh-huh. Okay, well, I think one of the few things that I think a lot of companies have transitioned towards, but still it's quite new, and a lot of companies are thinking about it, but they haven't really made that leap. Is, okay, some of the companies are still struggling with the transition from on-prem to the cloud transition, but there, when it comes to cloud, there have been scalable platforms or scalable cloud-based services available. But now we are even one step ahead, and that is the whole concept of serverless technologies, where where you move away from this whole concept of maintaining and patching your servers, or taking care of your operating system, or taking care of the vulnerabilities in your OS. No, you move away from that, and all you focus on is what you're deploying and how easy it is to deploy your app. So I think serverless technologies, they're a real game changer, and if you do them right, you can avoid so much extra work from your organization. It is crazy how good it is. The whole concept of serverless is like, you really have to understand what do you mean by serverless, because a lot of people tend to use the word serverless, but they don't really understand what serverless is. So I think it has kind of become a bit of a buzzword as
Yeah.
well, but it's if you understand and you're able to truly utilize it, it's fantastic.
So, in like simplistic terms, how would you define serverless tech for our listeners out there who maybe want to get a grasp on it?
If I say serverless, it doesn't mean doesn't have any server. There is a server, but it's just some faraway land in a data center, and you don't really have to worry about anything when it comes to the maintenance of that server. All you have to worry about is what you're going to be deploying on that server. You can have a containerized application, and you can deploy it on a serverless technology.
Cool. Well, thank you very much for clarifying that. And when it comes to serverless tech and just tech in general, how do you further your develop in this area? What things do you do to learn?
Most of the times it's like you don't really actively think that, okay, today I'm going to learn something, but it's just that when you're looking for a solution to a problem, you just end up with something like this. So it's more or less like when you sit down, okay, there is a problem in front of you and you need to create a scalable, secure, and a robust solution for this problem. So what do, right? You start looking for a solution, and when you're looking for a solution, you find out so many things, so much work that other people are doing around that line, and you come up with the solution. But I also think that, when companies they have learning days for the employees, like there's so many companies, especially in Stockholm, they have like once a month, or every 6 months they have like tech days or hack days. I think they're also very helpful when it comes to learning new technologies, because it gives the employees the freedom and the space that they actually need to learn something new.
What specific books, maybe courses or talks could you recommend that have been a real game changer for you from a technical perspective, but also personal development
Mm.
management?
I think that's a very interesting question, because these things are very different. Like when it comes to tech, what is it that really helped me to learn the whole culture around tech, and then there's like books around personal development, because I do read quite a lot. And I think but lately, there's so many books in the market. You really have to be careful about what you read, because I don't just blindly pick up a book and start reading it, because you become what you consume. So I'm a bit careful about what I'm consuming. So lately I've been reading quite a lot about Stoicism, the Stoic philosophy. I have been reading this book, Letters from a Stoic. It was written by Seneca some thousands of years ago. It's a really old book. And then I've also been reading Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. I think these books, they really have a big impact on me, who I am as a person and who I want to become as a person. And I think everyone should get in touch with their roots. I think that's very important. When I say roots, I mean roots of us as human beings. Yeah. It's very important, because these days the life is so fast paced. We're so consumed by tech and mobile phones and computers. It's so important to really get in touch with your ancient self. I think I really absolutely believe in that. And when it comes to personal development or leadership or personal development in terms of my career, I think there is one book that really changed how I look at people and an organization when I go to work. And I think that book is written by Sheryl Sandberg, a CEO of Facebook, called Lean In. Although recently I'm not really in favor of how Facebook has been running their businesses, but that book was written in 2013-14. And when I read that book, I really learned a lot about not just leadership, but particularly women and how they can lead in particular scenarios. That book really, really spoke to me. I was able to relate to a lot of scenarios that were narrated in the book, the whole concept of imposter syndrome and concepts around that, and also some of the scenarios that I had faced as a woman in tech in my workplace. I think that book really gave me the assurance that I'm not alone in this world, and there are other people who face the same problems and scenarios. So I will say, if you're in tech, do read that book. I think it's a really good book. Or not just tech, but in particular leadership. I think everybody should be reading that book. Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing. I've heard that book come up quite frequently, and I've heard great things about it. So it's such a fantastic recommendation. If we look back at your career, of course, you started off within just development. So how was your journey from development to head of platform?
I don't think it was a small journey. It was a long journey. I say 15 years. I think I'm being modest when I say 15 years. It's well over 17 years. But there is this strange culture in tech where there are a lot of senior developers who are reluctant to step into leadership. And I understand, everybody have their own taste, but I kind of feel like that when a lot of senior developers, they say stuff like, oh, we don't want to be managers, it affects the younger people in tech as well. And I am of the opinion that when you are in an industry for so long, it kind of becomes your responsibility to take more mentorship roles. It becomes because I have gained so much from this profession, and I kind of feel like I owe it to the younger people in the industry that, okay, I have been here for so long. What is it that I can give to the younger people? And if you want to mentor younger people, you have to take leadership position. It's great. I love being hands-on, but I also understand that, because I have taken so much from this industry in the last 15 years, I feel responsible that I want to give it back to the industry as well. And I think if you look at other industries as well, if you look at doctors or lawyers, they do the same thing as well. The other day I was looking at how the doctors transition from one phase of their doctorship to another. And I realized, like, if you are a chief of medicine or chief of surgery, you're not really doing any surgeries, right? You're just managing and maintaining surgeries all day long. So I think it's more or less the same in tech as well. I think it comes with the responsibility when you have been in an industry for so long.
Certainly, I think that's so important, creating these relatable role models for the younger generation, inspirational people they can look up to, they can aspire to be. So it's really great to see that you're taking on that responsibility and you acknowledge the importance of that as well. So what would you say has been one of your most memorable or proudest moments to date throughout your career?
Every day when I achieve something for myself or for my team, I consider it a memorable and a proud day. But if you ask me in particular, I don't think I can pinpoint particularly one thing. But every, like for example, every time you have a successful release, it's a great moment. Every day, every time you are able to make a successful deployment on a Friday, it's like you want to go home happy and spend the weekend. So I think it's instead of one big thing, it's just a combination of small joys that are more important for me right now at this stage. Yeah.
What would you say has maybe been one of the biggest challenges that you've had?
When it comes to me personally, I think my challenges have less been technical and more been related to people.
Okay.
I think in my personal experience, my biggest challenges have never came from tech, because tech is something, you spend like, I don't know, like a week and you can overcome a problem. But sometimes when it comes to people, it's really hard, because everybody comes with a different background, and it seems like that they come with their own experience and opinions. And the biggest challenge or the toughest thing for me is like, when you are 5 people sitting on a table trying to reach a decision, it gets hard sometimes. So I think that's something that everyone would say that this is how it is, and everyone needs to compromise on something. So I think it's great that if your team is mature and they can sit down and reach a decision, that's fantastic. But sometimes you're not always dealing with mature people. So I think that becomes a bit of a difficult challenge for me personally. Yeah.
So how did you try to overcome this challenge as well?
Well, you see, there are different techniques, there are different ways how to run or conduct a meeting, right? Sometimes you do have to put your foot down and you have to come up with a decision. And I think when I go into a meeting, I always say that everyone is a smart person here. So lay down the facts on the table and let's discuss the facts. Let's not focus on personal opinions, but let's focus on the facts and try to reach a decision based on the facts.
Looking at your experience from development, head of platform, what would be your advice to anyone else wanting to become a leader in their career?
There are two things. One is like, okay, what advice would I give to someone who's young and new in this field? And then I have this leadership philosophy that I would like to share with you as well. So first of all, when I want to talk about young people who are in this field and who want to grow in this field, I just want to say that, dream big, do not be afraid to make mistakes, and do not be afraid to experiment, because when you're young, that's the time to experiment. Do not waste that time, go for it, and just do not hold yourself back just because you have imagined a situation or you think of something as a fearful thing. Do not do that. Just go for it and convince yourself, because I know it's not easy. I mean, there are days when I have to stand in front of the mirror myself and I have to convince myself that no, I can do this. So talk to yourself and convince yourself, and don't let anything hold you back. But when it comes to leadership and the philosophy around leadership, I always say that when I'm working with a team, I mean, there's a quotation around this, that if you want to build a ship, do not teach your people how to chop the wood and how to put small pieces of wood together, but teach them to yearn and long for the vastness of the sea. So motivate your people towards a particular destination, rather than telling them everyday task, okay, you should do this, you should do that. So I believe in working with a team that is self-motivated, and a team who knows where we're going, because if the team knows where we're going, they will be motivated. But if they are just narrowed down and they're just sitting on their desk and only working on particular tasks, they will not be able to envision the big picture. So I think it's very important to do that as well.
Thank you for sharing. That's some really great advice. Did you always know that working in technology was what you wanted to do?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. You know, when you're a teenager or even when you're in your early 20s, you have no idea where life is going to take you. And that's what I say, that the only thing that I did right in my teens and in my early 20s was that I did not hold myself back up for anything. I was like, you know, I have time. I'm going to experiment. I'm going to try different things, and I'm going to really truly find out what excites me and what I'm passionate about. And I think I back then I enjoyed programming. I liked it, but I it would be wrong of me to say that I was crazy passionate about it. No, I was not. I was just trying different stuff and trying to figure out where life will take me. And
Yeah.
I will say that the fact that I chose tech as my profession wasn't really a conscious decision. It just happened. But now I like it so much, I don't think I would ever do something else.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. If I think back as well to when I was younger, I wanted to be a professional WWF wrestler, a
Yeah.
professional football player, and now
Yeah.
here I am, IT recruiter. It's
Yeah.
great that you were involved in programming.
Yeah.
Who or what would you say did inspire you to actually get into this space or even just start programming?
I think it's difficult for me to say, but when I look back, I do think of one of my teachers, and he comes into my mind. I think I would really like to mention his name. His name is Shoaib Khan. And I think when I look back, I don't think I interacted with him a lot at all, but it was just his presence,
Mm.
because he was a knowledgeable person and he knew what he was talking about, and he had written books about his work and everything. I think it was just his presence that inspired me to be a person who is knowledgeable about a particular field. It doesn't matter what that field is. I wanted to be in a field that I know about or I have command over. So I think it was this motivation that drove me into tech, that okay, this is an area where I can become an expert in something particular. I think he really inspired me to be a certain type of a person. And of course, once when I was in tech, I read up on other women in science, like for example, Ada Lovelace or Marie Curie, you know. And the reason why I read up on their lives was because, you know, the kind of adversities they face in their life is just, it's just insane how much they have achieved. I mean, Marie Curie is still the only woman with a Nobel Prize in both chemistry and physics. So I think it's really amazing to look at these women and get inspiration from them.
Definitely. And these are role models that we need to be celebrating more of as well,
Yes.
and educating the younger generation on the incredible achievements. We
Yes.
certainly need more of that. I know you've been doing a lot of consulting in the past. So what actually inspired you to pursue this?
I have been working for multiple companies. I've been working in the game industry. I've been working with fintech. And I think at this stage in my life, I wanted to work for myself. I didn't want to work for someone else.
Mm.
And I think that's a motivation that drives every one of us. You know, at the end of the day, we all want to be financially independent. I felt like consulting or having my own consultant company is the way to that financial independence that I'm looking for. And I will say that especially for all the women out there, like my decision to go into consulting was definitely based on finances. I wanted to have more control over my finances, and I wanted to work for myself. I've been wanting that for some years. So finally, I made the leap or the jump into the consulting. Yeah,
And
consulting
how did
world.
that process look for you?
It's a scary process, because leaving your permanent job or your salary is not easy, right? But it all starts by making a decision, starting up a company, registering a company in Sweden, and getting everything in place. Because, you know, once you are an independent consultant or you have your own consulting company, you have to have your accounts in place, you have to have some salesperson, you have to have some marketing being done for you. So it was a combination. It was not easy, definitely, and it was very scary as well, right? But I felt like this is what I want in life, and this is what I want to do. So it involves so many things, like talking to the right people, pitching my profile to the right companies, getting the right salespeople on board with me as well, making sure my profile or my CV is diverse enough for consulting roles, and then getting an accountant as well, making sure the payments are coming. So it's just a lot more than just going to work and being an employee. But I really wanted a challenge like this in my life, so I just took it, and it's so much fun. I would not go back.
The rest is history, as they say.
Yeah.
So it sounds like quite a process. So what would be your advice for anyone wanting to transition from permanent to consulting, freelancing?
Consulting is not for everybody, so I think it's very important that if it is for you or if it is not for you. So if you even want to try it out, if you want to experiment with it, I think it's great. You should do that, and you should not hold yourself back up. But it's a lot more work compared to being an employee. When you're a consultant, you have a lot more responsibility, and when you're sitting at a client side, your whole reputation is at stake. Or if you're representing a company as a consultant, then the reputation of that company is at stake. So I think it's a challenge, but if you are comfortable being an employee, you should stay an employee. But if you want to challenge yourself, you should challenge yourself and become a consultant, because growth lies in pushing yourself and being uncomfortable in life all the time. So I think I go with that philosophy a little bit.
I think coming out of your comfort zone is really key to your own personal development. What kind of mindset do you feel you need to have to be a consultant?
One of the key attributes to being a consultant is that you should not think that you are working for a company 9 to 5. That's, I think, is the key. You should be thinking in terms of, I am going to be spending this much hours with this client. So do not think that you're working for a company, but more like, okay, this is a client and I'm providing them some certain type of services. And sometimes even after the day ends, I have to come home and I have to have meetings with my salespeople and my accountant, and I have to do some bookkeeping as well. So yeah, I think the key things here is the mindset that this is my client, I'm providing them a certain set of services for a certain amount of money, and I'm not going to get too involved in things that do not require or affect my personal and mental health. I think that's also a key there as well.
That's so helpful for anyone that wants to make that transition. I know that you have also been presenting at different conferences, a DevOps conference as well. What would you say are your top tips for overcoming the initial nerves of public speaking?
Okay, so I think I would like to answer this question with a different approach, because I think it's important to mention that presenting or speaking in front of public comes to me naturally.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't actively made any changes or attended any courses to learn how to perform public speaking. And I think every person in this world, they have a certain set of natural abilities. It's just a matter of finding out what you're good at naturally, and then just do it and not be afraid of it. So I think I was lucky enough to find out that public speaking comes to me naturally, and I did it, and I did not hold myself back. And I was like, it doesn't make me nervous, it doesn't scare me, so I'm just going to do it. So I will say that if public speaking scares you, but you want to do it, then of course there is a path that you can take. But if you should not force yourself to go into public speaking. If it makes you anxious or if it gives you anxiety, then find out what makes you happy. I think that's my key answer here, that every person, there is something, like there's a natural ability in everybody about doing something, and something that they can truly shine at. So first of all, find that out. But if you really truly want to come into public speaking, then start with a smaller crowd. For example, in Stockholm, there are so many meetups, technical meetups that takes place all the time. So go join a meetup, present at the meetup, start with a crowd of 5 people, maybe 10 people, and then it can increase naturally. But I think I will also add that sometimes the kick that you get out of performing or presenting to a bunch of people at a conference is amazing. So if you really really enjoy it, go for it. Don't hold yourself back.
That adrenaline really gets flowing, doesn't it? When you're stood there and there's hundreds of people in front of you, it's hard to explain, but certainly I
it's
think
very scary as well. I will say that it's very scary, because once you have a topic that you want to talk about with a bunch of people, you read what you are about to present at least like 1,000 times and make sure that what you're about to say is correct, right? Otherwise it can be very scary to be presenting to a bunch of experts in their own fields as well.
it is a very scary there's been moments myself where I could literally hear my heart pounding in my chest. But it is worth it, and the more you do it, the better you get at it, right? It's practice. So thank you for sharing, Ambreen. And how about preparing your presentations? What would be your advice here?
This is something that I actually learned, or I did some study on, that as human beings, we all like stories. We all like to listen to stories. So whenever I'm making my slides or whenever I'm preparing for a topic, I make sure that it is in a format of a story. I like the idea of me being a storyteller and I'm telling a story rather than just sharing a bunch of slides with a bunch of people. So it is always more interesting if you can present things in the form of a story. So I think when you are about to present something, think of yourself as a storyteller. I think that really helps.
And also it's a great way to just get people more engaged. Right?
Yes.
Thank you for sharing that. I want to touch on this topic because I feel like now more than ever it's so important, and it's work-life balance, especially with people now working from home, having to juggle home life, work life, family life. How important do you feel work-life balance is?
Okay, I'm just gonna be 100% honest with you. If you had asked me this question 5 years ago, I would have said, "Oh, work-life balance, it's just for weak people, right?"
Yeah.
Because I live with that mentality, and I am one of those silly people who thought like this. But then I got really, really sick as well because I was working a lot, and I think that really opened my eyes to what the reality is, because your life is not just about work. And your work should not be the only thing in your life. You have to have a life outside work. And I am guilty of being that person who thought everything is only about the work. So I think I have learned my lesson the hard way. So all I can say to people is that, yes, I've learned my lesson. And I can only tell you with firsthand experience that, do not make that mistake. You have to have a balance in your life. Work is great, enjoy it as much as you can, but at the end of the day you have to take care of your mental health and your physical health as well.
Definitely finding that balance is so important.
It's a struggle to find that balance. It's really hard, but sometimes you just have to shut the laptop down. Sometimes you just have to do it. It doesn't matter if you have this one last line or this one last email to send. Just shut the laptop down. That's it.
Learn to let go, learn to say no as well. That's something that I've really struggled with and I'm trying to work on. What would you say are some of your tips to achieve work-life balance? Again, we know it's not an easy thing to do, but just from your own personal experience, what have been your lessons learned?
As I've said, that I'm still struggling with it, and I do struggle with it every day. I'm just being 100% honest here. But few of the things that I think are important is having to do things or finding out things that makes you happy or that makes you feel fulfilled. For example, why did I work so much, or why was I so addicted to working? Was because it gave me this sense of fulfillment, right? So find out other activities. It may be doing some volunteer work or being involved in some sort of charity, or I don't know, painting or playing football or participating in, I don't know, a snooker game or something. But just find that activity that fulfills you from within, because without an internal motivation, it's very hard to let go of something that is giving you this fulfillment, because we are all either looking for player through enjoyment or player through fulfillment or achievement, right? So I think it's very important to find what is it that gives you pleasure.
Yeah. And I think a lot of that comes down to self-reflection as well, right? Taking a step back and just having a deep moment with yourself, ground yourself, and realize what are the things that truly give you that fulfillment. So thanks again for sharing, Ambreen, and we really appreciate your honesty on this. It's such an important topic. Do you have a family?
Yes, definitely. And I think that's what motivates me to shut my laptop sometimes. Most of the times, I'll say.
How do you get through a tough day?
Okay, so I have learned that tough days are going to be there. It's just not possible to have a life without tough days. So what you need to do is to learn some kind of management of tough days because you cannot avoid tough days. But if there is a tough day, you should have some sort of a protocol that, okay, this is my tough day. I have identified this is not going to be an easy day. So what is my protocol? And usually my protocol for a tough day is usually just focus on one task. Don't multitask too much. Do not get involved in unnecessary conversations or discussions. Only focus on the task that must be done, and take a walk and have a good lunch. I think these things, they really help. Or have more coffee breaks, or give yourself some time. I think people struggle with tough days because we struggle with identifying what a tough day is, because I think it's very, once you have identified, okay, this is going to be my tough day, just follow your protocol. Have a protocol for a tough day. I mean, this is a rule that I follow very strictly in my life, that okay, time out. Not gonna do it.
I think we really need to normalize this as well, because I think sometimes we're so hard on ourselves that every day needs to be perfect. It needs to run a certain way, but everyone has their tough days, and that really is okay. And sometimes just embrace the tough days. The more you try to fight that feeling, the worse you feel. That's some really great advice. So Ambreen, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you and hearing your story, your journey in all things DevOps as well. And you've shared some really fantastic advice. How we like to finish part one of our Q&A is finding out a little bit of a fun fact about you and some of the hobbies that you're interested in outside of work.
I do like reading, watching TV or movies, of course, like everybody else. I like to go for a run as well. On a tough day, that's a tough day protocol, go for a run. I really like driving. I really enjoy driving different cars. I like all type of cars. Me and my husband, we discuss cars all the time. Yeah, so I think we watch car reviews quite a lot. Learning about cars is one of my hobbies, and I really absolutely love driving around in Stockholm, and it's beautiful. Yeah. Otherwise, I think just spending quality time with the family and just learning to stay happy and feeling fulfilled, because life is too short to cry and being sad.
Totally agree. Life is way too short. So you just have to live every moment to the fullest. Definitely. What would you say is the single greatest piece of advice that you've ever received and that you take action on every day?
I've been lucky to have some great mentors in my life. But one of the things that I really absolutely stick by is that do not give in to the things that you don't want. Otherwise, you'll have to give up the things that you actually want in life. So do not settle for something that you don't want in life, because if you're going to settle with that, then you will have to give up the things that you truly want in life. Sometimes sometimes the things that we want are not really achievable, but I think it's the hope, it's the ambition that really counts, that motivates you towards a dream or a goal. So do not ever give up on what is it that you want from life.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing, Ambreen. So like I said, it's been so good speaking with you. I look forward to tuning in with you next week, where we will discuss all things diversity and inclusion topics.
Awesome. I think that sounds great.
Thanks so much, Ambreen. You take care.
Have a good day. Bye.
Bye.